to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Bleach Soul Society The Rescue Arc, Episode 59, Conclusion of the Deathmatch, White Pride and Black Desire. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So at the start of the episode, Ichigo's friends finally make it to the top of the cliff where they can feel Ichigo's spirit pressure and power, but it's grown a lot since the last time that they've felt it, so there's some confusion over whether it is actually his, but it's the same at the root, and that's why they know it is Ichigo. And they don't go and help him because they know that he would not want that, as he's obviously trying to prove a point for himself, though they do learn from Yachiru that Rukia has already been rescued, and Ichigo is now just fighting to make sure that nobody tries to execute Rukia again. We then have the conclusion to the fight with Byakuya. So first off, we have Byakuya then unleashing a second level to his Bankai, which basically creates a dome and then thousands of individual swords around, and he says that it's reserved for those he has decided to kill with his own two hands. And Ichigo, of course, says he's flattered, but then Byakuya ends up getting the jump on Ichigo, and Ichigo realizes it's not that Byakuya got faster, it's that he got slower, and he struggles in the fight, almost dying, but that is when the hollow mask that he'd been carrying around, throwing away, comes back and takes over half of his face. And as the Hollow, it's obviously a bit more of a chaotic fight, but he does manage to push Byakuya back. However, Ichigo ultimately overcomes the Hollow on his face because he wants the meaning of winning by himself, and he wants to make sure that his intention in winning is clear, and with the Hollow taking over, that would not be the case. And so he manages to pull off the mask, and it crumbles, and then he and Byakuya, of course, have their back and forth conversation, but then Byakuya unleashes yet one more attack for his Bankai, um, which basically looks like white wings. And Ichigo says that unfortunately Zangetsu only taught him the one technique, but that he's going to put the last of his spirit power into this technique. And they then, of course, run at each other, they clash, and in the end, both Ichigo and Byakuya end up with shoulder wounds, surprise, surprise, which if you've been watching for a while is not a surprise. And Byakuya admits that Ichigo has won, that his intention has gotten through, and that he will not attempt to execute Rukia going forward. He then leaves, and Ichigo then starts to fall over, as basically all he was capable of doing is standing up, and he falls into Inoue, and they kind of give a bit of an update before we move on to Hitsugaya and Matsumoto, who we saw at the end of the last episode arrived at the Central 46 compound, and they were locked out by the door. However, Hitsugaya this episode then breaks through the door and is surprised that no alarm is going off, so he and Matsumoto then run through this hallway of a bunch of doors and into the entrance, it would seem, of a chamber, and they both look absolutely shocked, but we don't get to see what they were shocked at, so that is our cliffhanger for the next episode. Anyways, now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we now will rank the episode, first on our mostly objective ranking list, and then the personal ranking list. So, our mostly objective rank values, we start with 2 points for the resolved battle. This, of course, is Ichigo versus Byakuya. Ichigo victory, as Byakuya admits defeat. Though if we're talking about final condition, I would say Byakuya probably won because Ichigo could no longer stand and falls over, and Byakuya was able to flash step away and didn't seem overly bothered. He just had been gotten through mentally. Um, or gotten through to mentally. Next up, we have 3 points for our multi-arc supporting character growth, and this, of course, is Byakuya, who shows multiple new skills. We have the Senkai, or Slaughterscape, which is his second, more personal level of his Bankai. Then we have Shukkei Hakuchiken. I don't think I said that even close to right, but either way, it translates to Endscape, White Emperor Sword, and that is the white sword with the white power with the wings. Um, and then last is in the midst of fighting, after he unleashes the Senkai, he does pin down Ichigo's foot with a second sword because he's got thousands of them available, and he uses Byakurai, which is pale lightning, on him. Also, surprise, surprise, but not really, on his shoulder, because not so much in the last couple arcs, but in the initial, like, introduction to the series, the Agent of the Shinigami arc, every wound was a shoulder wound. And it got to the point where I was like, this author has some sort of fetish for shoulder wounds. And we've seen them come back a few times, but this episode really brought them back in force. We had the lightning through the shoulder, and then we had the final cuts both being on each other's shoulders. Um, so that was also 3 points. Then I have the impactful, memorable moment line, etc. And honestly, I think I might have, in my mind, because it had been so long since I had last rewatched, I think I combined this fight with Kenpachi's fight because I distinctly remembered Ichigo gaining his half hollow face, but I thought it was against Kenpachi, not against Byakuya. But either way, the hollow taking over, increasing his spirit force and increasing his abilities, and ability most importantly when he is starting to get weak and feel the effects of his stamina depleting, is when, oh my gosh, I've lost my train of thought, is when the hollow comes out. And anyways, I find it very memorable when the hollow came out, and I knew it happened in a fight for the first time after, he was walking around with the mask and it kept coming back, even though he kept trying to throw it away, and it even saved him a couple times. And so I gave it 3 points for that. Though I did have that mix up with thinking it was against Kenpachi, not Byakuya. Or who knows, maybe the fight that I'm actually remembering is one that we haven't even had yet. I don't truly know, but I don't think so. I think this is the fight, I just had who it was against mixed up. And then we have our multi-arc main character growth, and we see a Black Hollow version of the Getsuga Tensho, which is basically black wrapped around with red, which is pretty epic. But it is a different version of the same attack, but because it's a new version, I'm still counting it, and it gets 4 points. And then I did give -1 point for the character regression, and that was due to the Hollow's temporary takeover, which showed a weakness in Ichigo's mentality, which allowed the Hollow to take over. However, he does end up overcoming it and pulling the mask off ultimately. So, minor regression, but still there was a bit of regression there, which is why I took 1 point. Either way, we still are above 10, and this is a 10 out of 10 episode. Bringing us to our mostly objective ranking so far, and when we have more than one episode with the same score, we do rank it in episode order. So our ranking so far has, in first place, Flash Goddess Yoruichi Dances, The Despicable Shinigami, Ishida, The Utmost Limits of Power, Morning of the Sentence, Genichimaru's Temptation, Resolution Shattered, An Accomplished Oath, Get Back Rukia, Supersonic Battle, Determine the Goddess of Battle, Senbon Sakura Crushed, Zangetsu Thrust Through the Sky, Release the Black Blade, The Miraculous Power. This episode came in 10th place, Conclusion of the Deathmatch, White Pride and Black Desire, followed by Hitsugaya Howls, The Strongest Shinigami, Ultimate Confrontation Between Teacher and Students, Overcome Your Limits, The Avengers, Rukia's Nightmare, Renji, Oath of the Soul, Deathmatch with Byakuya, 17th, Authentic Records, School of Shinigami, and then The Reviving Lion is currently in last. My personal ranking is also 10 out of 10. I really love this fight. I really, really like the powers of Byakuya's Zanpakuto. If I could choose to have one, honestly, I'd probably pick Yamachika's true form of his, but barring that, it would always be Byakuya 100% his Senpou Sakura. I think it's beautiful. I think it's awesome. And even the new attacks in this one also were pretty epic and awesome. So it's a fight with my favorite sword. Why wouldn't I give it a 10? As always, I'm not overly fond necessarily of Inoue, and they do like to really spend a lot of time on her, which I'll put down to the author fetish because otherwise, like, really don't see why we spend so much time on her. Ruki is a much more likable character. Matsumoto is also female, much more likable. I will say, anyway, probably has Hanamori beat, but that's only because she's freaking out with grief right now and not really thinking clearly. So, anyways, what was I going to say? The battle was epic. The cliffhanger was interesting. Didn't necessarily need the parts with the friends, but the fight was epic enough that I just decided to give it 10 points because no matter what other detractors there may have been in the episode, the fight basically overcame them all and won. So, in first place, we have Release, the Black Blade, the Miraculous Power. Second, Conclusion of the death match, White Pride and Black Desire. An Accomplished Oath, Get Rukia Back, or Get Back Rukia. Ishida, the Utmost Limits of Power. Supersonic Battle, Determine the Goddess of Battle. Senpou Sakura Crushed, Zangetsu Thrust Through the Sky. The Despicable Shinigami, The Reviving Lion. Renji, Oath of the Soul, Deathmatch with Byakuya. Morning of the Sentence, Hitsugaya Howls. Genichimaru's Temptation, Resolution Shattered. Flash Goddess Yoruichi Dances. The Strongest Shinigami, Ultimate Confrontation Between Teacher and Students. The Avengers. Authentic Records, School of Shinigami. 17th, Rukia's Nightmare, and an 18th so far is Overcome Your Limits. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far with our mostly objective rankings. And in first we have Agent of the Shinigami arc, followed by the Sneak Entry arc, and now the Rescue arc is at 157 out of a possible 220. Then we have the personal ranking, which had Agent of the Shinigami arc in first, Sneak Entry arc second, and then the Rescue arc here is at 130 out of 220. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Bleach, Soul Society, The Rescue Arc, Episode 59, Conclusion of the Deathmatch, White Pride and Black Desire, and thank goodness because I've seemed to have lost the ability to speak or think. So like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.